Y'all, another day, another video. I'm just going to talk pretty briefly about two videos that I have not done yet, and that is the pagan attestations of Tacitus and Josephus, um, Flavius Josephus, and his Testimonium Flavianum, and that specifically I just wanted to talk quickly about today because it's one of the worst attestations of Jesus. When I say best, worst, it is one of the best. If you take a look at what it says, it is a glowing report of Jesus. It says he was a doer of paradoxical, wonderful deeds, miracles, basically. He was the Christ, that he rose on the third day, and a number of other things. But it is basically universally talked about today among scholars as partially interpolated into, as partially forged. Now I take the extreme position here, and I want everyone to know as well that I take a pretty extreme position in Jesus studies and Jesus historicity as a rule, and I do not believe Jesus Christ of Nazareth existed at all. I see Jesus' story as an amalgam of Old Testament typology, of this Titus layering as well, because you can see the layers of information you get by the time we get to the canonical Gospels, the fourfold canonical tradition that Irenaeus first specifically talks about in about 180. So this is 150 years after Jesus' death, or thereabouts. 150 years. And it's shocking the lack of evidence we have. Now, the Testimonium would be the first non-Christian attestation of Jesus, and it covers so many bases. It talks about, we're going to go through this very quickly here. And just recently, a guy called T.S. Schmidt released a book, which I think is actually not particularly on the money here. I haven't read it. I want to be clear here, but I've read some work on it, and I've listened to about 3 interviews with him. One on Myth Vision, the other on Jacob Berman's channel, and another Christian channel as well. I can't remember the name of it, but it's very tentative, I think, what he's saying, and essentially pretty speculative, and there's far more evidence for the whole thing being a forgery. It's a small text that's jammed into a report on Pontius Pilate in the 18th book. It's 1833 of Antiquities. And we're just going to go through a few reasons why I think it's a complete forgery. And I think the James quote as well, because there's another quote, very small interpolation into a portion of text where Josephus is talking about temple succession, and names a bloke called James, the brother of a Jesus. But we're going to find here, I won't go into that today, but we will be looking at that, and it's far more likely that that is an accidental interpolation from a marginal gloss, basically, that's just been interpolated into just 3 words that says James, the brother of Jesus. Which is most likely to be false as well, and it's more likely to be fake if this is fake as well. So the Eusebian fingerprint in the Testimonium Flavianum is stylistic and philological analysis. So philology is a study of language over time, styles of language, written languages, and so on. This essay argues that the language and stylistic features of the so-called Testimonium Flavianum, TF, found in Antiquities 1833, are inconsistent with the rest of Josephus Flavius's corpus, but align remarkably well with the stylistic tendencies and theological vocabulary of Eusebius of Caesarea. Drawing on specific lexical and rhetorical patterns, we analyze several expressions used in the TF and show their absence in Josephus's writings and their frequency in Eusebius' apologetic works, including the Demonstratio Evangelica and Preparatio Evangelica, demonstration of the Evangelists or Gospels, and Preparatio for the Gospels as well. These cumulative indicators provide substantial evidence that Eusebius either authored or substantially redacted the TF. Now, Schmidt agrees with this. He agrees specifically, as I have read, that Eusebius had an input here, and I think it's going to be quite obvious that he did after going through these. So the first thing is teacher of human beings. And this is, so we're going to go through 1 to 11. I think it's about 11. Oh, no, 8. 8 instances of Eusebian language being used in a text with only about 95 words in the Greek and about 117 in the English translation. So it's a small piece of text. It can be read in about 25 seconds. Okay, absent in Josephus. So teacher of human beings is absent in Josephus. Nowhere in Josephus's extant works does this formula appear. Frequent in Eusebius, used in Preparatio Evangelica 1:1, 6-8, and Demonstratio Evangelica 9:11-3 to describe Jesus and another universal moral teachers. So significance, the phrase reflects a universalistic theological view aligned with Christian apologetics, not Roman Jewish historiography. And we're going to find this is all through the Testimonium. 2, performer of paradoxical works, absent in Josephus. Josephus refers to miracles using terms like the Greek word there. You'll see it on the screen. I don't know in Greek, I'm sorry, but never this expression. Used in Eusebius, found in Demonstratio Eve 3:4 and 21 to describe Jesus' miracles. Significance, a theologically loaded phrase common in Hellenistic Christian rhetoric, alien to Josephus' discourse style. Tribe of Christians, very important one here. Josephus' usage uses the tribe basically only for ethnic and national groups, Jews and Edomites and so on. He refers to sects with this term, and he never refers to a religious group. You see, now you'll find that Eusebius uses this a lot. Describes Christians, and again here you'll see this in Historia Ecclesiastica and Demo as well. Significance, anachronistic and un-Josephian usage, pointing to Christian ecclesiastical vocabulary. Receiving truth with pleasure, another important one. Absent in Josephus, though Josephus discusses acceptance of ideas or doctrines, he never combines truth, reception, and emotional pleasure this way. So the truth here in a theological, like the Christian truth or religious truth, he never says that. He just talks about truth, if it's true or not, Significance, rhetorically Christian phrasing indicative of evangelical writings, and Josephus was never ever a Christian. Doesn't talk about Christianity at all in his voluminous works, The Truth. So we've just been through that way. No, have we? Well, sorry about this. I'll make sure I got this. Yeah, the truth. So the truth in this context as well, only in the singular. So he talks about truth, often refers to denote plural truths of God's revelation. And this is Eusebius saying this. So truths as God's revelation specifically. Significance, pluralizing truth is theological rather than historiographical, making its presence in the TF highly suspicious. Even to this day, absent in Josephus, not found anywhere in his corpus. And using this specific phraseology, the specific words in the Testimonium here is much more characteristic of Eusebius, and likely in these cases, not just likely, but never found in his works. significance here, even to this day, a stylistic marker of continuity and fulfillment, typical of early Christian apologetics. A wise man, Josephus uses, but never in conjunction with. So this wise and then man, the phrase wise man as a compound is absent in Josephus. Eusebius uses this word similar phrasing when describing Jesus as a sage or philosopher. So he uses wise man, Eusebius does, to describe Jesus. Never does Josephus. Part of the Hellenistic Christian literary framework, not a Roman Jewish one. And Josephus never mentions Jesus, only in these 2 instances in his whole book. We're going to find a little more about why that's strange in a moment, and myriad other things. Josephus does not use this phrase. Refers more formally to more formal and literal descriptions. This is found in Demonstratio and the Life of Constantine. The references are right there on the screen. Another example of rhetorical excess not found in Josephus' restrained style. Supplementary arguments supporting Eusebian authorship. Eusebius is the first known quoter of the full Testimonium. Eusebius is the earliest to cite it. This is about 215 years after Jesus is supposed to have died. That's a long time. Many Christians, we're going to find out, many Christians lived. So, pre-Eusebian Christian writer Justin, Origen, Tertullian reference this passage, though they had good reason to, and these guys specifically as well knew Josephus and quoted from Josephus. Justin, it said that he knew Josephus, but we're going to find quite a few other people knew Josephus's works and even cite them, and they never talk about the Testimonium. Origen explicitly says Josephus did not believe Jesus was the Christ, contra Celsum 147. This is very important. Origen here explicitly uses Josephus many times. He refers to him a lot and never ever quotes the Testimonium, and never refers to it, never cites it at all. TF fits Eusebius' evangelical strategy as well, and Ken Olson has a wonderful essay on exactly how useful it is to Eusebius in the Demonstratio, exactly where it first appears. He's making an argument and then using this dubious TF right where it makes complete sense for him to do so for the first time ever in the history of the TF. And he also says, let us make use of Josephus before he does this as well. It sounds a little strange. People have commented on that. We'll go through here. But what I wanted to show you here is the early familiarity with Josephus's works by other Christians. So a number of Christian authors before Eusebius were familiar with Josephus, but never mentioned the TF. So Pseudo-Justin, Theophilus of Antioch, cites against Apion Jewish wars. Maecenas Felix refers explicitly to the works of Flavius Josephus. Now, Maecenas Felix doesn't even mention the Gospels, and he's writing right here in the 160s, or a little later. Irenaeus uses Antiquities. Clement of Alexandria refers to both Jewish wars and antiquities, cites Josephus on the priestly succession. Julius Africanus draws on at least 12 books from antiquities, but he's now quoted through other historians. We don't have any extant copies of his works, not any full ones. Tertullian uses against Apion, refers to Josephus in apologetic works. Hippolytus of Rome. Again, some of these guys are more loosely referring to his works and maybe not referring specifically to Josephus, but of course many of them do. So Methodius of Olympus cites Jewish wars and so on. So this is rather strange. Closing comments. Yeah, it's very unlikely that this testimonium is even partially authentic in my view. It is not Just my book open here. It doesn't sound reasonable, and there are a number of other reasons as well to doubt this. One of them, of course, is that all of the Arabic and the Syriac translations that are found later on, some people say that they betray some kind of earlier copy. This has been disproven by Alice Wheely, who makes a very strong argument that all of the subsequent versions of the Testimonium come from Eusebius's copy. The Testimonium is derived, as it looks as though it's derived from Luke 24 and the Emmaus narrative as well. It tracks the Emmaus narrative very closely indeed. So it's quite likely, not completely proven, but it's quite likely that someone has the Emmaus narrative in front of them and they're just ticking off as they go, forging the Testimonium, what is said in the Emmaus narrative, and you can have a look at that. What's his name? It's Goldberg, 1995. I forgot his first name there. And it goes on, and I have so what I'm going to do is put this whole chapter into a video like I have done with Eusebius and Pliny the Younger. And we're going to be building on this substantially in the next few days and weeks. I'm going to try and put out a video every day, but I will certainly be putting out a video 5 times a week. Let's say it every day if I can. And we're going to really go through this, and I'm taking the work of quite a few people that I can see, far from contradicting each other, that we can basically note here that we're looking at many decades of composition of the New Testament from Jewish roots, which favor a celestial interpretation of Jesus, and are taking the Old Testament and building a literal historical. It's so interesting, an historical figure out of this apocalyptic, messianic, celestial God, basically a God. The Logos theology as well has a huge impact on this from the Hellenized world. And this is why there are plenty of gods that exhibit this trend here of starting off as gods: Romulus, Osiris, Hatzalmoxis. There are many, and then they're brought down to earth. Hercules is a good example of one as well. Then they're given human stories over time so people can relate to them more, and it's just exercises in creative writing. It's exactly the same way that Jesus came along, I'm sure. And there are some Jesuses in the 1st century, but I've got to say they're completely different characters. They might have some similarities in certain respects. Yeshua Notzri, great example of this, but he existed no later than 70 BC, and he was killed in another place, and it goes on. He was stoned to death, had 5 disciples. There we go. Have a good day, guys. So the Testimonium is definitely somewhat partially edited into, expanded, but my position is, as well as many others, is that it's completely fraudulent, and Christians cannot give any examples of any history or any archaeology. And the 12 disciples, all of it, the Holy Family, everything, they cannot locate Jesus in the 1st century at all. All the information comes from the 2nd century, and then it builds and builds slowly, and that goes for all the letters of Paul as well. Actually, they're found only, and they're discussed only in the 2nd century, in about the 140s, 50s, and that's what it is. Okay, take care, guys.